Well, guys, I think it's safe to say a lot has changed since the last time I compared Nikola motors with Hyliion and Hyzon when I last released my comparison video back in March of this year. It was actually one of the best performing videos on my channel, and I think it's for good reason because a lot of people are interested in learning which one of these trucking companies could be one of the most innovative in the future, even though I would love all three of these companies to succeed because all of them are going to have an impact on our carbon footprint and our dependence on fossil fuels. Well, unfortunately, the landscape has changed pretty significantly over the past 6 months as Hyliion and Hyzon are both struggling slightly in their charge towards revenue. Hyzon specifically just had a massive decline in its share price after they were not able to file their quarterly report with the SEC. Now, this is a pretty big concern because this means they could get delisted, and as a result, the stock has basically been tanking over the past month or so. But obviously, you can't just look at it on the surface. You need to understand exactly what the nuances of the situation are and how this will affect Hyliion or even Nikola Motors. But as usual, guys, before we get into it, make sure to drop me a thumbs up and hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. So to start things off, let's understand why Hyzon stock has performed so poorly over the past month or so. As you can see, we have recently had their CEO actually change and leave the company, which I think is obviously not a good thing because this was not him retiring. This was him getting replaced by the board of directors from another person. Now, there could be multitude of reasons why this is happening, but it looks like the board of Hyzon decided that Craig Knight, who was the founder and CEO of this company, is not a good leader, or he was being dishonest in the way that he was dealing with the SEC, or he might have been doing some sketchy business, which I found kind of ironic because obviously Nikola is the one that everybody thought was being sketchy, but it's pretty clear that they're not as sketchy as anymore they were back in 2020. And obviously that has resulted in the stock tanking because if you don't file your quarterly report with the SEC within 30 days or so, I think, the SEC will give you a notice of delistment from the NASDAQ. And that's not a good thing for such an early stage company like Hyzon because they need to raise money from the public markets. And the public markets are really the only way that they've been able to raise awareness of their product in the first place. And while talking about their product, the bigger problem is that they don't have a product out on the market just yet, at least in the US, with their Class 8 semi-truck. Yes, in Europe and in China, they have been selling some units of this middle vehicle, which is the Hyzon High Max. But again, the problem is that this was a double-edged sword because this quarterly report filing delay is actually a result of some of the revenue they recognized in China, which is potentially being misrepresented. And that's obviously the reason why they are facing all this scrutiny. And as for those that don't even know what Hyzon does, Hyzon is essentially a hydrogen company where they sell fuel cell trucks that are retrofitted on existing ICE chassis like this one on the Freightliner Cascadia. And I've already discussed in the past why I think this strategy of retrofitting existing chassis with fuel cells or batteries has not worked. But for me, the bigger problem with Hyzon has been the fact that they're just a spin-off from another fuel cell company called Hyzon. Hyzon sells recreational fuel cell products and they're based in China as well. Now, for me, I'm not saying China is a bad investment. I'm just saying that building a company in China and expecting to do revenue recognition in Europe and the US is pretty difficult. It's not the same case the opposite way if you build a business in the US and want to sell in China, but it is pretty difficult for you to go outside of China. And for me, that was one of the major red flags, for me at least, investing in this company, even though I do actually own some Hyzon fuel cells that I've used in the past for different business projects. And so yes, even though Hyzon is doing a very good deed by trying to commercialize a very, very important technology in fuel cell Class 8 trucks, I don't think I can consider them to be competition for Nikola anymore because they're clearly dealing with their own small problems. And well, that neatly brings us on to the other competitor that many people have been talking about, which is Hyliion. It tends to rhyme with Hyzon, and many people tend to actually get them confused. But Hyliion is essentially a company that sells this natural gas retrofitted chassis on existing ICE platforms. They have actually two products on the market that are expected to come out on the market at least within the next couple of years, which is the Hyliion Hybrid and the Hypertruck ERX. I believe the Hybrid is just an e-axle that's placed onto existing chassis, whereas the Hypertruck ERX is actually a full-fledged custom product that, even though it's still going to be built on an existing chassis, is going to be manufactured from the ground up in terms of systems and electronics and all that from Hyliion, which is going to have a 1,000-mile range, which would be spectacular if this gets commercialized into the ecosystem today. But again, the problem with Hyliion, for me at least, is that they're selling, again, a retrofitted solution, and they're relying on natural gas today. If you guys read the Inflation Reduction Act, you know that there is basically no investment being done in either renewable natural gas or blue natural gas, whichever one it may be, which is obviously a low carbon footprint form of natural gas. Instead, a lot of the investment is being done in hydrogen, which, even though Hyliion's solution in the future can run on hydrogen, is not ready for that just yet, because there's a lot of validation and testing you need to do, which is something obviously Nikola is doing right now with their fuel cell beta and alpha trucks. And that also tends to neatly bring us onto the financials of Hyliion, which, as you can see, based on the second quarter results, they haven't reported any revenue as of yet. Now, that doesn't mean this is a bad company. I think Hyliion is a very successful business because they've been able to obviously take on a very huge challenge of trying to commercialize natural gas-based electrification. But when it comes to comparing to Nikola, it doesn't look like they're as ahead of that business just yet. As you can see, they are expecting to do only $2 to $3 million of revenue in 2022. Meanwhile, Nikola reported $18 million in the second quarter alone. And so this means their production is not going to happen anytime this year, and it might take for them at least 2024 to realize recognizable revenue from the Hypertruck ERX. Right now, it looks like they only have around 200 Hypertruck ERX production slots in their order backlog. And the bigger problem here is that right now, their hybrid trucks are not even selling at all, because they've only recognized $200K worth of sales from that, which tells me that they sold only one hybrid unit. And so that, for me, begs the question, why are they focusing on Hypertruck ERX when even their hybrid is not gaining all that market traction in the short term? But again, that could be just an anomaly, and the situation could develop for the best in the future as Hyliion executes on their Hypertruck ERX platform. And so right there, for me, is the main reason why I'm not an investor in Hyliion, and the reason why I'm more comfortable investing in Nikola. Even though I think both companies will succeed, they're just in different stages. And for me at least, I want to bet on the company that has opportunity to realize revenue much closer in the short term, because obviously Nikola is not only planning to sell a hydrogen truck like Hyliion, which would compete with their product, but they're also selling already a battery truck, which also creates its own total addressable market and gives Nikola an edge over other companies. And it also seems like Nikola's overall been able to raise more money through institutional investors over the past year, which tells me that overall demand from the stock market for this company is higher than other companies in this space. And so whenever another fund manager or a hedge fund wants to increase their exposure to the EV industry, or potentially even the Class 8 market, then it looks like the first thing they look at is Nikola, not any other of the other businesses. And so that's the main reason why I'm more comfortable buying the stock. But obviously that is just my opinion, and I recommend you guys follow whatever your research directs yourself to.